Well, hey there team, and welcome to Stationeers. Hey guys, so a quick forward to this video. I'll try and be brief because essentially I spend a lot of time faffing about trying to come up with what we're going to do next and talking it through. It's all important parts of the process, but I just sort of wanted to cover off that I do hit a little bit of a wall, but I sort of did a bit of Googling and sniffing around and I've come up with a workable solution moving forward. So just before you guys, get worried about it being a bit of a cliffhanger, being that, these things are semi-tutorial anyway in their nature. I don't want to leave people hanging. Essentially, I have a core concern with creating coolant, or rather having some sort of heat transfer system. Now, there are radiators in this game, which essentially can be used to transfer heat in and out of a pipe back and forth. It should seek equilibrium. So if the room's warmer, it'll warm the pipe. If the pipe's warmer, it'll cool the room, right? That's perfect. Unfortunately, that requires steel, which is a fairly high tier item at this point, because you have to actually make your own oxy mixture and all that to heat the right amount of iron with carbon to create steel. So, actually kind of like in real life, to be honest. So that's going to be exciting when we get around to that. So radiators aren't an option right now. I did a little bit of Googling and looking around. Apparently, walls, I was experimenting with the walls and windows and getting an idea of whether they emanate heat. Apparently, the walls are treated as pure insulation, I believe. I'm not sure about the windows, but what I did find is that pipes in themselves have a radiation component, which is good because that should be like real life, but it's still a game. It can be hard to simulate these things. So I'm waffling already, but what I'm trying to get at is the plan to create some sort of a heat transfer system is I'm likely going to run a coolant system filled with X that we siphon off the room. I'm going to run the pipes external to my room, so outside in the in space, and just snake them along the wall or as long as it needs. And that should, during the dark side of the moon phase, cool the pipes, or it basically should radiate to the outer space, and that's how we're going to come up with a coolant system. Anyway, I just thought I'd put that on the end of there because I do get a little bit stumped because it's one of those things I can work with theory, but it's not real life. It's still limited by the video game's systems, and I don't know how far they go. So good news, we're going to be able to come up with coolant. Anyway, I'll stop talking and I'll put the video on. Well, hey there team, and welcome back to our Stationeers run. Don't worry about these particles, that's normal. Again, like I said, I've accepted that we're going to lose this pressure in here. Quickly, a couple of things. I'm getting more and more feedback, which is wonderful news. It's all good. As long as we're all civil with each other, I love to hear what people have to say about certain things. One really interesting thing that I didn't really consider is having the double active vent and having this one not powered on has the gameplay effect of essentially being a blocked pipe, or even just having no vent there at all. So we won't be able to generate flow. So one of the first order of businesses today is going to be replacing this with a passive flow vent. So thank you for that. Understandably, I've never thought of that before because I usually just use the passive vent, but it makes sense. That should, it's not really going to fix our wiring problem because we're still going to want to wire that one. A few other things. What was I going to say? Someone was just asking about the furnace. The reason the furnace is inside is because we want to capture the errant gases. Generating the gases that we want for our atmosphere is actually kind of difficult because if you want to go starting to melt ice and all that sort of stuff, we're getting the wrong gas. I don't want oxygen and I don't want H2. Burning silicon seems like the go. That's given me everything I want. In fact, as I think about it, more and more, the X that this gives off, we could turn into coolant, which we're going to clearly need as well, of some sort. Generally speaking, I think liquid coolant's probably better, but I'll take gas at this point. That's too far down the track to worry about. Another thing is we're obviously dealing with a very large space, which is a pain when we're trying to obviously fill it with an atmosphere. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Well, essentially, you could do a one by one, but what we're doing here is essentially 9 times harder. The problem with that, and why I did that, is if you can go back and find the older footage, but these bloody things, these portable things, had a nasty habit of like, I'm not going to do it now. That's why I built them in here and kept them and didn't touch them. If you pick them up and put them down near this edge, they pop through. There's some sort of bug in the game where they can pop out, and especially when we had the limited door width because we weren't using the glass doors, I thought it wise to do that, just leave it like this, because pulling them in and out through the airlock is an absolute nightmare. But having said that, I'm not necessarily trying to excuse my behavior, but it's more, let's just lay the groundwork so you know why we did what. Now that I realize that I'm going to have to bolt these down and put them into like a semi-fixed state anyway, then they're going to behave like this, I suppose. There's going to be no popping. So there is room for us to rejig our room. Now, as pointed out, rightfully so, you would probably want some sort of atmospheric processing room first, and then siphon that off onto the hydroponics like a separate room again. This is getting very complicated. It is probably the way to go, at least in the long term. And you can even go through the comments previously, as I pointed out. The main reason I'm not trying to be too complex in that layout in the early stages, well, it is twofold, but I don't want to starve. I spend a lot of time talking through what's going on, but we are going through food. And the other thing is, like, I don't want to overcomplicate it anyway. Just doing it very simple systems is complicated enough. If I start building entire builds for episodes at a time that are 3 steps removed from the main build, it might become a bit difficult to follow if you're just a beginner trying to figure out what's going on. Oh, wow, look, that charge is definitely coming down a bit. Anyway, so look, that's my little preamble at the beginning. So, what does that mean? Well, for starters, we're going to have to replace this vent, and we're going to replace this, or do that wiring, right? That's easy enough. We've let all the gas escape. It's interesting that it's saying that the temperature's in here, but it's pretty much no gas anyway, right? I'm going to bolt both these down, right? We're going to put an X filter on this. So essentially what that's going to do is drain X into the pipe system, right? The other thing is I'm reluctant to just drain air, like put a vent straight into a pipe system and put all mixed gases in, right? Because this game, I'm assuming, adheres fairly closely to, ideal gas laws and that sort of stuff. And as soon as I start putting hot gases into well, obviously it's going to be a pressure-rated pipe system, but it's going to have a limit and it's very small volume. So like, it's like compressing that super hot air mixture even smaller, and I'm reluctant to just jam it all in. So you need to filter it before you do that. You have to keep track of it all. So we're going to bolt this down. We're going to have a filter for X. I'll check that we can build one such filter. And then we're going to have essentially a coolant system. We'll put a thing in the corner as well, right? Which I guess we could put it external. I wonder what the transfer rate of heat between pipes is in this game. I bet it's not. I bet it doesn't exist. I don't think they do that. So I could potentially have the gas external, like the gas tank external, just to even save space on this room. That's an interesting thought. Maybe I'll do exactly that. Okay. All right. But those definitely have to be in here. That has to be in there to scrub, right? It has to scrub. This also will have to be in there, unless I wanted to build an air conditioner. As someone pointed out, I was correct in you would need some sort of coolant system if you wanted to use a wall cooler. I haven't even looked at what that looks like. So I guess, but I mean, how are we going to cool it? How are we going to cool it when we've already got like hot gas? Like, what's going to be the best way to do this? Because the heat has to go somewhere, The heat's got to go somewhere. The heat's got to go somewhere. This can attach onto a coolant system. It heats its internal air that is part of that system. So it essentially heats its coolant system to cool these gases out here. Right? So what are we going to do with the internal gas? How are we going to cool that down? Do we vent it? And then put more X in, but the X is hot as well. Oh, Christ. The more I think about this, the more I think we're going to have to actually melt, like have oxygen as coolant, of all things. How else am I going to cool this shit? I really don't know how else I could call it. I do have a hydraulic pipe bender over here, do I not? Alright, I'm going to look for a little bit of inspiration. Just bear with me. I hope you can follow what my brain's doing. Is generating the cold. I don't know if we can do some sort of heat transfer. Maybe like a radiator or something like that. I don't know. With the external, because obviously out here outside, it's freezing cold. You know, so if we have some sort of heat dissipation device, that would be big. Portable air conditioner. Jesus, okay, see, there goes my gold. Portable scrubber, portable tank. Yeah, we'll get to it. Pressure regulator, radiator. So what's that do? Presumably... Gold and steel. Well, no, that's off the cards. We can't build steel. Not yet. That's a long way away. We'll have to actually do metal chemistry on that. So you have to do iron and carbon combinations into an advanced furnace. And I've blown myself up with that back in the day. Wall cooler, right? Wall heater. Like the heat has to go somewhere. And only what, like, I'm thinking, how do you dissipate heat? Like, how do we... Can we actually, through a glass room, cool the inside? Look, I guess it's not 30 degrees here, but that's probably because it's all gone out the door because I've kept it open. Oh, I'm legitimately a bit stuck here, team, on how I'm actually going to do a coolant system. All right, well, look, I'm going to think about it while we do this because I need to pull some of this shit off anyway, so let's do that. Let me think while we do that. All right, this is probably going to need that, like a wrench. No, hand drill. All right, this bloody vent can piss right off over there. Not interested. We could reclaim that cable, but I'm not that... Oh, maybe I will in a second. How do I pull the wall out? Here we go. Boom. Jeez, look, just pop out because my hands are full. All right. We need to connect this in. Yeah, because the smelting process itself is going to cause... Alright, so someone said if I hold the wire cutters in one hand and do this, then I can upgrade. Oh crap, can I not get into it without pulling the... I don't think I can. Alright, I'm gonna have to pull this bloody section out as well. Alright, that's okay. Hang on. Cable junction. Yeah, okay, so you have to be holding the strippers in one hand, but you can do it if you do that. That's cool. Thank you to the commenter who reminded me, because I think it's the same person that told me last time, and then a few episodes went by and I forgot. Alright, so let's re-weld this back on. I don't think we're going to need to... Well, at the very least, we now have a wire pass-through into the room and into the airlock anyway, right? So it's all good anyhow. Pick that up. Nice. This should have power now. Good. And then we'll build that vent now while I think of it. What am I trying to do? Active vent? No, I want the passive vent. Vent. There it is. Let's close this. What's that going to take? 3 iron. Oh, daddy. Oh, I've only got 1. Did I leave iron in here? Alright, do I have iron? I'm pretty sure I got a fair bit, did I not? What is that? Hang on. Yeah, that's iron. Cool. Let's bung it in. Those temperature readings terrify me every time. Alright, give me my iron bars. But, yeah, we might be right about that. We might actually just have to make a totally, like a smelting room and just catch all runoff gas. I'm not sure. Now you can build some sort of high, like advanced, what's that noise? It's just the flow. I think you can build a sort of advanced, like hydroponics machine. Alright, well let's turn that off. Alright, well look, first things first is we're going to want to capture all the gas, right? For starters. And this is actually going to be this is going to act as an active vent, this scrubber, which is portable. Presumably we'll have a look, but I bet you they all require steel. Atmospherics. Oh no. Build an atmospherics kit. 20 copper. 5 gold. You know what? I want to see what happens. We've got enough gold. How much was it? 20 copper? Oh, we got enough. Yeah, let's do it. Now, smelting this much stuff in this little space will be interesting. Especially the gold. Gold went bananas last time. I mean, there's no nitrogen. There's no oxygen in any of these. Like, they might have, not volatiles. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But look, worst case scenario, we're just going to get some very, very hot air in here that's trying to vent out the front window anyway. It's interesting. It throws me how the particles go over here. It's a weird visual representation. Like, it makes you think there's a leak. I mean, there isn't. Clearly, because we've managed to hold pressure in here before. Alright, let's just smelt all this stuff. See, like, it is slowly, but we've got one kPa. It's building a little bit of pressure. Yeah. You know what? Let's do a little experiment now, actually. I should have thought about this earlier. Right. Okay, so we've sealed the room. It's low pressure. 234, 233. Alright, so it's dropping. There's not enough pressure for us to really be sure, right? But essentially, if it's only 1 kPa of particles in this room, it's like there's a lot of space for them for heat transfer, for cooling, right? So what's going on now with the temperature dropping could well be proof that we're essentially getting a heat transfer through the windows, if you follow. That's what it strikes me as. I can't be 100% certain, but I think we're losing heat to the outside, you know, freezing vacuum essentially. Or not even freezing, just vacuum full stop. Now, I'm going to go with that working theory because that's the only way I can think of to fix my coolant problem. Is just use the natural sort of lack of atmosphere in lieu of some sort of heat sink. Alright, let's do the gold. Look at that. So hot, so fast. And the gold takes forever to cook. Oh, see that? It does it in surges because the gold, like you can see 9 grams. To cook 1 gram, it takes a lot. So it puffs it out. So it's not actually doing each tick. The tick that it is emitting on is when it goes to the next bar to cook. Jeez, look how hot that's getting. It's a lot of energy. Yeah, so we'd potentially be wanting to drain this straight into a pipe system, you know? That's a lot of heat and a lot of pressure. And, you know, your volume starts to be less of a concern then because you're inside a pipe. All those kilopascals, or even though there are a few. Yeah, it makes me wonder. It really makes me worry. And the only real fix to that is decrease pressure, which you're not really going to be able to do if you're putting it into a pipe system. Like, not realistically. Increase volume. So what do you then do? What, do you run it through a whole shitload of tanks to hold the pressure in across more areas? I mean, that's an option, I suppose. But, like, it's still just a pressurized tank. It's only a little bit of volume. So, if what I'm saying is true, if we can do a heat transfer essentially through a glassed room, right? What your best bet, honestly, to act for coolant is have a big old room like this, covered in glass, and just have a large area. So we've got large volume, the pressure should come down, and then we'll have temperature transfer from that as well. So it shouldn't squeeze the temperature up any more than it has to. Huh. Interesting. Just thinking about all this sort of stuff. Like I said, chemistry is probably my weakest part in all my engineering and that. Happy to admit. Alright, so I want to see what this atmospherics kit's about. Let's have a squiz. Alright, we got data. We got power. Air conditioner output. Air conditioner waste. Air conditioner input. Temperature. Interesting. Alright, so we've got a pass through, right? So we've got an input and an output. And we've got a waste. Alright, so why is there a fan on it? Like, is that just to, because like when I look at this, these fans actually represent like intake and that sort of thing. You know, it's got a fan as well. Alright? So is there an intake going on here as well? Do you know what I mean? Air conditioner input, air conditioner output, waste. How is there a waste and an output without a filtration? This seems to only have a temperature and power. It's funny that it had that on when it got placed immediately. I don't understand how this could work. Yeah, it seems like it's got an intake. Do you see what I mean? How can it actually have an air conditioner output and a waste without some sort of... I'm going to have to investigate that further. Geez, how'd we go with the grid? Oh, God. We didn't, because we were busy burning a billion things. Alright, charge low. That's okay. That's okay. Let's just pull this out of the grid. We might have to pay attention to our power a bit more. I hope people are following my conundrum, you know. And I could be overlooking something very simple, but I don't think so. Essentially, like I said, coolant requires cool, right? And to be perfectly honest, as much fun as it would be melting ice and all that sort of stuff as a source of coolant, right? The idea of that doesn't appeal to me so much. I want a system that runs itself, right? The only real sort of infinite source that we have is power, right? So can we put power into a system to like, because it's vacuum out here as well. We don't have infinite gas. Otherwise, I just blast, like I just use friggin' like Mars's atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd use that as some sort of coolant surrogate, sort of like a heat transfer medium, and I'll just blast it out into space and then bring more in. This is actually, the moon's harder than I thought. Because I ultimately don't want a system reliant on you know, going and farming more stuff. But alas, that might be the case. All right, cool. We've got the vent. We've got that done. We built this atmospheric kit, which I'm going to have to look into because it's not making sense to me at a glance, which is a shame. I wonder if you actually do have to rig it with data. Like, I've done data slots and that before. You have to build a computer and program, and you can actually firmware it. That's what that slot's for. It's like a little floppy disk that you put firmware, you program it from a computer elsewhere in the game. Yeah, that might be the answer because I can't see this doing it physically. Right, well, but what does that mean for us now? I know I've done a lot of talking, not a lot of moving, but that's because we're sort of we have a big problem. And the other thing, plants are going to generate heat as well. So I think... Okay, so here we go. Hypothetical. We have a room full of CO2 and nitrogen or whatever, but we have our grow room at final state, right? And at the right temperature, somehow. Its temperature shouldn't take too much regulation, right? Plants potentially would increase, but if anything, we'd probably have to keep the room warm because it would have the windows and we would have a transfer rate going, right? So we just need to get it to that place. This is why we cannot have the grow room in the same room as this furnace. I've come full circle to that point because as soon as we touch this furnace, it superheats everything. And we just can't have that. So we're going to need to build a totally separate grow room. We can't have our grow room in here, right? Now, it's harmless enough actually to have this as our sort of gas room, I suppose, because it doesn't really matter because we'd be draining it to vacuum routinely. Right. Okay, so this is the new plan. We're going to build a connector. We're going to build a tank. We're not going to filter it immediately. We're going to create a system where we can capture all of our gas no matter what, right? That's the first step. We're going to jam it all unfiltered in, but we're not going to be messing around with oxygen and hydrogen and all that. So even though they'll be very hot and pressurized, we've got inerts, we've got, you know, carbon dioxide, which is pretty safe in the scheme of pressurizing it and keeping it hot. At least I think it is. Right, so we'll do that. So then we can keep it. We can potentially vent it into the room. All right, I'm going to start building stuff while I think. But here's the thing. Each time I leave the airlock, I'm probably going to have depressurized the room, right? No, not necessarily actually, because we've got the cycle air vent. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. In fact, now that I've built this air vent, there's no reason for us to ever again lose gases. So what I'm going to do, I've got 10 silicon left, right? Always close the out one. See, I'm learning. But we can leave this open, that's fine. All right, cool. I'm going to cook this silicon because I want to experiment with this with the temperature. -40. See, now that's interesting, it coming up, because it was obviously essentially nil vacuum, right? So all that heat's got to go into this system. So the silicon doesn't actually burn that hot comparatively, but still, we're not getting a lot of pressure. You know, look, it's getting hot enough. All right, but there you go. Okay, so we're at 11 degrees and 0 kPa, right? Cool. So we're gonna close that. We're gonna, oh, let's get this right. Set inward and on. All right, so you see how we got 0 and nil in our external here? That means we're good here, we're vacuum. All right, so it's all in there, that's cool. All right, we're gonna go out. Oh my goodness. What do we need for this bloody thing? Because we're running out of power. Oh, portable solar panel. All right, what's the go with this? Just real quick. How's this go? Oh, we can put a bloody battery in there. Yeah, all right. Yeah, put that bloke in there. Do I have to turn you on or something? No. Go. Generating. Visibility 0. Ah, hang on. Is that a bit better? How can you not see the sun? Oh, here we go. Alright. It's starting to go now. That's good. Good. Oh man. Okay, so it feels like we were marking time a little bit, you know, walking on the spot here, but important discussions were had. We're going to sort of force feed this a little bit. Just because I'm potentially going to go out on a recce. I don't want to lose power while I'm out. We're going to go ahead and I know it's not sexy work, but it's got to be done. Got to charge these batteries. Okay, right. So this episode's going to start wrapping up shortly. How's that going for charge? 40%. All right, so it's okay. It's a cool little bit of kit. I need to use it a bit more. All right. Let's eat that. Let's give this a quick adjust. Oh, there you go. It's right on 100, but it's dipping. All right, so they're both charging. All right, we'll check one last thing. No, we'll put this back in the belt. All right. So, what was it? 11 and 0 or 11 and 1, something like that. We won't worry about repressurizing this, but you'll see it buff it in. Even at that low amount. All right, 11 and 0. Look, it's a hard test to do because we don't have a lot of pressure. But it's still 11. I was kind of hoping that we might have lost some. But then again, we've got the sun. So we really need to check if the temperature drops during the night. But for the moment, I don't want to go just jamming other gases, other things in there while we test this. Oh, look, 12. Looks like we've gone up a little bit. Interesting. Because you can't just vent pure heat. That's just not a thing. There has to be a transfer of the heat. You know? I mean, unless you can dissipate it through some sort of solid, like a metal heat sink, I suppose. But I don't know if that's a thing. this. Perfect. All right. All right, well, that's charged, so that's good. So let's get that. Oh, it's only a small battery. And we'll just reset that to center for the moment. All right, well, that's something. Okay, team, a lot to think about. Feel free to contribute. But at the moment, my next plan is we're going to go get a whole bunch more silicon and we're going to fill this room up with, because I want to sort of continue to test the sort of coolant transfer of the room to the outside especially during the dark side. Because that'd be very interesting. But at the very least, we need to start capturing gas anyway to make this happen, right? So, smelting more silicon to throw it in there is the plan. Alright team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.